हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू राज मल्होत्रा IAS अकेडमी। एज टुडे इज वर्ल्ड वेटलैंड डे, तो आज देखते हैं वेटलैंड्स क्या होते हैं, इस बार के वेटलैंड डे की थीम क्या है, एंड व्हाट आर द एडवांटेजेस ऑफ वेटलैंड, व्हाट आर द वेरियस थ्रेट्स टू वेटलैंड्स, एंड व्हाट आर द वेरियस कन्वेंशंस इंटरनेशनली एंड द लॉज दैट आर देयर एट द नेशनल लेवल दैट ट्राइज टू प्रोटेक्ट दीज वेटलैंड्स। सो लेट्स सी व्हाट आर वेटलैंड्स। Now, if I talk about wetlands, wetlands are those areas where terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem meet. One of the best example, if we have to talk about where terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem meet, could be the example of mangroves. Now, if we talk about wetland definition from the Ramsar Convention, it is very important because it tries to give us a holistic view of what are wetlands. So, wetlands according to Ramsar Convention are areas of marsh, fen, peatland or water. It could be natural or artificial, it could be, let's say, temporary or permanent, and one thing that is very important, the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. So basically one thing we can understand from the definition of wetland, that these are the areas that are saturated with water, and these could be natural as well as artificial, and their depth does not exceed 6 meter, जिससे हमें यह बात का पता चलता है कि ये ज्यादा शैलो नहीं होते हैं, राइट? ओके, नाउ द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ वेटलैंड्स एज बीइंग स्टेटेड बाय आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर इटसेल्फ. So basically, if we talk about our wetlands, these are very important if we have to consider our overall flora and fauna, and along with it, these are very important for flood control as well as groundwater recharge. Considering the importance of wetlands, we have also, let's say in India, have a total of 75 wetlands under Ramsar Convention, which we're going to discuss in the next slides, right? Okay, now let's try to look at the advantages of wetlands. If I try to look at the advantages of the wetlands, one thing that comes to our mind, like tropical rainforests are called the lungs of the earth. Similarly, wetlands are called the kidneys of the earth because they filter out the waste. Very important. Just like our kidney do the filtration process, wetlands also act as the filtration system, right? Along with it, if we talk about wetlands, they are very important for all water related ecosystem services. जो अभी हमने डिस्कस किया, जैसे PM मोदी जी ने बोला that it is very important for flood control as well as groundwater recharge. Wetlands are the major habitat for most of the world's water birds and key habitat for migratory species. Now, if we talk about India, let's try to understand this from the point of India. India is the home to Central Asian flyway, that is one of the migratory routes for all the migratory species that flows from Russia to the Indian Ocean. Now, if we talk about migratory species, they come to these wetlands and come here for their breeding sites, right? तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं माइग्रेटरी स्पीशीज के लिए भी, राइट? सो वेटलैंड्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर माइग्रेटरी स्पीशीज एज वेल. Wetlands have high recreational, historical, scientific and cultural values. No doubt, क्योंकि यहां से हम इतना टूरिज्म प्रमोट कर सकते हैं. It has a lot of high economic potential value. So wetlands overall are very important if we talk about the overall health of ecosystem. Let's try to look at the threats to the wetlands. One of the threats to the wetlands is urbanization. Like we can say, wetlands could be classified as inland wetland or coastal wetland, but it is the inland wetland that are suffering the major pressure due to urbanization. Due to urbanization, the demand for land is increasing. As a result, the wetlands which could be the possible wetlands that could have been mapped or identified are left behind. Second, climate change. I think everyone would acknowledge this fact that climate change is one of the major reasons that is resulting in, let's say, evaporation of water, and as a result, the lakes which were once saturated with water are no more saturated with water. Habitat loss. This could be again part of the habitat loss and fragmentation. Then we have the unsustainable development, just as we discussed about the urbanization process. Then increase in population. Now, increase in population results in increase in area under agriculture. If you have to increase the area under agriculture, then as a result, some of the wetlands have to be destroyed. That is the same thing that is happening in mangroves in the Sundarbans area of West Bengal. So these are all the advantages and the threats. Let's try to now look at the convention the international convention that tries to protect these wetlands. One of the main convention, if I have to talk about, is the Ramsar Convention. Now, Ramsar Convention has three principles. One of the first and the foremost principle is the wise use of wetlands. Very important. It has been asked in UPSC mains exam as well. Second is to prepare a Ramsar list. And third is, if there are wetlands that are being shared between two countries, then they have to make sure that both are putting efforts towards protection and conservation of those two wetlands. So, this is basically about Ramsar Convention. And if we talk about Ramsar sites that are a part of the second objective of Ramsar Convention, that they have to prepare a Ramsar list, the countries who are a participant to Ramsar Convention. There are currently over 2400 Ramsar sites around the world. Very, very important. These facts are very important, that this is the only convention that specifically deals with the wetlands. Moving on, now the main thing, that is our World Wetland Day for 2023. हमने देखा क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, हमने देखा क्या थ्रेटलैंड्स हैं, क्या थ्रेट्स हैं, राइट? पर सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज क्या है कि हम उसको लेके क्या कर रहे हैं. सो दिस ईयर थीम इज इट्स टाइम फॉर वेटलैंड्स रिस्टोरेशन. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट भाई, ये वो टाइम है जहां पे हमें वेटलैंड्स को रिस्टोर करना है, विच हाईलाइट्स द अर्जेंट नीड टू प्रायोरिटाइज वेटलैंड रिस्टोरेशन. नाउ इफ वी टॉक अबाउट रामसर साइट्स इन इंडिया, there are total of 75 Ramsar sites. This is the largest network of Ramsar sites for any country in South Asia. The network of Indian Ramsar sites currently covers 1.33 million hectares, which is approximately 8% of the known wetland extent of the country. So, if we talk about India, India has a total of 75 wetlands that are under the Ramsar list, right? Okay. Now, we dealt with the international convention, that is the Ramsar Convention, but what are the laws that are there in India, or what are the measures that have been taken in India to protect the wetlands? Recently, in our recently announced budget, there have been the scheme that has been launched, that is Amrit Dharohar scheme, that is basically involving the community for the sustainable management of the wetlands. On World Wetland Day 2021, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change announced the establishment of Center for Wetland Conservation and Management. Basically, that would be the center that would be sharing the best practices that one could have in wetland restoration. That marks the theme with our World Wetland Day of 2023. On October 2, 2021, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change launched a web portal by the name of Wetlands of India, that tells us about the wetlands of the country. It's not about those wetlands which are a part of the Ramsar list, but it talks about the wetlands of the country. National Plan for Conservation of Aquatic Ecosystem is there for holistic conservation of lakes and wetlands. In 2017, we had the Wetland Conservation Rules 2017 that gave the powers to states as well, and to the union territories as well, in order to make sure that they have the role in identification of the wetlands and in their protection of wetlands. And if we talk about coastal wetlands, they are also covered under the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2018. So, these are the recently taken steps that have been taken by India in order to protect wetlands. As we know, wetlands are very, very important for migratory species, for overall ecological health, and they act as the kidneys and as the filtration system. We have to make sure that we take adequate steps to make sure that we restore our wetlands and restore the pride of our ecosystems. Thank you.